Hey guys, what's up? Today I'll be doing a video talking about and comparing the first two full lengths from the band Devourment. I thought this would be a fun idea to talk about both these albums, and I'll probably use this versus style format a couple more times. If there's two albums in a band's discography where the fan base is somewhat split, I thought it'd be fun to talk about both the albums and then at the end give my opinion on which I prefer. So the two albums we will be talking about are Molesting the Decapitated and Butcher the Weak. So first up, Molesting the Decapitated. Originally this came out in 1999 on the label United Guttural Records. And this is just such a landmark album in extreme music, both in slam and brutal death metal. While I definitely think this is a pure slam album, the songwriting and just the overall end product was probably equally as influential within brutal death metal than slam. But this is at a point where the genre was it had its sound already, but Devourment just really defined like slam, especially moving forward into the 2000s era. And this album is just insane. It's probably, like with a lot of other people, my introduction into the very extreme side of metal, both lyrically, imagery, and musically. Ruben Rosas on vocals, he is just the classic, to me, the toilet bowl gutturals, and of course, filling the shoes of Wayne Up from the Impaled demo was no easy task, and while they kind of have different approaches, I really think he did a very good job on this full length, because they re-record Shroud of Encryption and Choking on Bile from the demo, and he does really good filling Wayne's shoes. There's some great tracks on here. The opener, Festering Vomitous Mass, definitely displays Devourment's ability to combine insane, frantic, and almost just like noise, spaz, riffs and blasting, along with really precise and well orchestrated slow down and slam riffs. I feel like, to me, Molesting the Decapitated is the best example of how to mix up speed with slams and different types of riffing techniques and slowdowns, because while I really don't claim to be a fan of slam genre at all, I think Devourment, there's a couple exceptions, but I think what really makes me love Devourment so much is their songwriting ability. It's very memorable, and it's not, these songs aren't ones that you're gonna listen to and just immediately can't remember anything about them. There's very iconic moments in each of these songs, and they do have some longer tracks too. The second song, Postmortal Coprophagia, that is, I think, around a little over 6 minutes, which is very long for slam and brutal death metal. But there's some really catchy riffs in there that they bring back, and it's something that just creates a very memorable end product. And I think you can tell Devourment is kind of taking influence from earlier Texas bands. Like there's a riff in Postmortal Coprophagia that sounds a lot like Mesmerized by the Bloodstained Walls by Viral Load, another Texas band. So you can really see the genre growing at this point, and then Devourment just really defined it on here. And they play as a 5-piece lineup with Mike Majewski on bass, Ruben Rosas on vocals, Brian on guitar, Kevin Clark on guitar, and Brad Fincher on drums. And it's a really solid lineup. I'm a big fan of Brad Fincher's drumming. I think he was kind of the first to pioneer just like the spastic rolls on the snare, which a lot of slam bands try to incorporate into their sound. And he both has good blasting and a really good sense of groove on all the slowdowns. And I think the drums really help drive this album, because without the ability to set the pace in the percussion section, I don't think this album would be nearly as good. My only complaint with this album would be it starts, for me personally, the beginning of side B, starting with Self-Disembowelment, doesn't quite hold up to the A side of the album. It's not bad at all, but I feel like Self-Disavowalment, Fuck to Death, and Devour the Damned are a little bit weaker songs, and then the album gets rounded out with Shroud of Encryption, which I think a lot of Devourment fans would agree is one of their strongest songs. So pacing-wise, I do think this album is flawed a little bit. Not that those songs were bad, but I just feel like the first 4 songs are they just drive you into the ground with how heavy they are. And then, like I said, the songs are good, but to me the pace just slows down a little bit. And yeah, this is an excellent album. Absolutely terrifying lyrically, and it's just like, I think a lot of people's gateway into the super, super extreme and super, super sick music, both imagery-wise and instrumentally. So, first up, 1999's Molesting the Decapitated. Then, after 5 years, this came out in 2005, 6 years, Devourment would go through some pretty interesting lineup changes before recording their second full-length, self-released, originally came out in 2005, Butcher the Week. They had downsized to a 3-piece with Mike Majewski on vocals, Ruben Rosas covering strings, and with the entrance of Eric Park on the drum set. And I think they pull this lineup off really well, because if I think of any other band going after their second album and trying to follow up such a great debut, putting your bass player on lead vocals and your lead vocalist on strings is just something that sounds like a recipe for disaster, but Devourment pulls it off very, very well on this album. Mike Majewski's vocals are pretty different than both Ruben and Wayne's. He kind of has a bit of a more aggressive and straightforward growl, where Ruben did a lot of like interesting noises with his throat and with like inhales and stuff like that. Mike Majewski just kind of belts it out and goes for it, and he does sound he sounds very good. It's just a different approach. And Eric Park is absolutely phenomenal on drums. Both jobs on the percussion section are very, very good on both these records, but I have to give, drumming wise, the edge to Eric Park. There's a lot more gravity blast on this album than Molesting the Decapitated, and I mean specifically gravity blast because Brad Fincher did like two-handed snare buzz rolls, where Eric Park does that, but he does it with one stick gravity blast while still playing cymbals with his other hand. And yeah, he just does a really, really good job in the drum department. And the riffs, of course, you'd expect a bit of a sound change with the main songwriter from Molesting being gone and Ruben and Mike writing the music, but it sounds surprisingly consistent. There are a little bit of riff differences. I would say this probably has more slams and there's less noise riffs, a little bit less pinch harmonics. There were some old school style sounding riffs that were on the debut where there's really not much of that on here. But favorite tracks from this release, opening song Butcher the Week starts off with a super, super classic sample, and I love the way that starts. The one thing I think this album has over Molesting is pacing. I said, to me, the debut kind of slows down side B, while I think this album is a bit more consistent throughout. Even though my favorite songs are on the A side, the first 3 songs I think are the best: Butcher the Week, Masturbating at the Slab, and Serial Cocksucker. But the B side offers some great tracks. Anal Electrocution, which has one of the coolest drum techniques being done on the intro. Eric Park really shows his command over rhythms by switching between like 8th notes, triplets, and 16 notes in this really cool blast beat drum feature thing. It's pretty neat. And they also re-record Babykiller from Impaled, which to me will always be Wayne's song, but Mike does a pretty good job in the vocal department on here. It's definitely very strong vocals. I think pure slam-wise, if you just compare slams, I think this album has better slams. it's a little bit more bouncy and groovy. Just take the intro of Serial Cocksucker, for example. It's got this really good grooving, driving bounce that is pretty neat. And both of these albums are great, and I think it's very impressive that Devourment was able to bounce back despite all of the strange changes in lineups. And they were able to really make a consistent sound, which is something I would not expect just by hearing the lineup. But anyway, it would be time to crown a winner. So I am probably in the majority. I don't think this split is super close. I definitely, just by a little bit, prefer the debut, Molesting the Decapitated. Even though I think Butcher of the Week has better pacing, there's just some unbeatable tracks on here. Festering Vomitous Mass, Choking on Bile, the title track. This album to me is just unbeatable. I also really like the noise riffs and the spaz blast. Not to mention there's a little bit more pinch harmonics and some kind of maybe just on the very edge of like OSDM sounding sections. But this is definitely an album that just propelled the genre forward and did very big things for both slam and brutal death metal. So if anybody wants to voice their pick, definitely do so. I'm always interested to hear what other people think, because I know some people do prefer Butcher, and I absolutely respect that because they're both phenomenal albums. So anyways, thanks for watching.